Hello everyone. Today we will be unboxing another figurine for the week. Here we have is a figure from the manufacturer Storm Collectibles. Is a 1/6 scale articulated figure of the character Baki Hanma from the series Baki, based on his appearance from Hanma Baki, Chijou Saikyo no Oyako Kenkahen, or Hanma Baki, Son of Ogre. As always, before we take the figurine out of its packaging, just in case you didn't know, Hanma Baki, or Baki the Grappler, is a manga series serialized in Akita Shoten's Weekly Shonen Champion in 1991 by the mangaka Itagaki Keisuke, who's also worked on other series like Make Upper in 1989, Garouden Boy in 2003, Dogesen in 2010, and others, but is mainly known for his work on Baki the Grappler. There are also other spin-off series like Baki Gaiden in 1999, Baki Domoe in 2010, Yuenchi Baki Gaiden novel in 2018, while the main story also has a sequel to the original manga called Baki New Grappler in Search of Our Strongest Hero in 1999, with the sequel Hanma Baki, Son of Ogre in 2005, Baki Do in 2014, and Baki Do 2 in 2018, and Baki Rahen in 2027, all serialized in Aki Shoten's Shonen Champion, all written by the same mangaka Itagaki Keisuke. The original series first got an OVA called Baki in 1994 by Studios Knack Productions, then got a full anime adaptation called Baki TV in 2001, with a sequel Saidai Toramento Hen in 2001, both by the studio's group TAC. Then came an OVA special anime in 2016 that led up to the recent Baki in 2018 by Studios TMS Entertainment, with a sequel Baki Dai Raitai Saihen in 2020, with also the adaptation of Hanma Baki, Son of Ogre in 2021 that also consists of a season 2 in 2023, with the most recent anime adaptation Baki Do in 2026 by the same studio TMS Entertainment. So here we have is Hanma Baki, the Son of Ogre, in a 1/6 scale. This is his box rotating in 360. Let's just take him out of his packaging and see how the figurine looks. So before we actually continue on taking Baki out of his packaging, I did also want to show you guys that this is actually a sleeve cover for the actual box. And as we can see here, we have is the actual figurine, or should I say the window for the figurine inside of the packaging. At the bottom here we do see is the information you get when you usually get a figurine. You get is extra info at the bottom, but we normally don't really read that as much as, you know, figurine buyers. But here is the actual window where you see the text here says Hanma Baki, and if you would like to keep it in its packaging, you can have it displayed as an option here, where we do see is all the swappable hand pieces and the figurine of Baki straight out in his packaging. So for any collector out there who wants to just have him in his box, you can also have him displayed in this option. But for the video, I will be taking him out of his packaging and showing you guys the figurine. So let's just take him out and see how the figurine looks. So here we have is Hanma Baki straight out of his packaging, and we can see here he's actually covered with protective plastic protecting the figurine, like most figurines, so we don't get any scratches or scrapes on the paint. And as you can see here, he does have a set of multiple swap out hands. We do see here is an extra leg sculpt with him wearing shoes, and then we also get an extra head sculpt, and we also see a mixed media pants. So let's just remove all of this excess plastic and see how each part looks up close. And there's also an additional mixed media fabric school uniform that the figurine does come with, where we do see here it comes with it. It's separate in this little plastic bag, so you can take this off and also have him in his school uniform if you would like to. So here we have is the actual figurine sculpt of Baki Hanma, and judging by looking at it right here, it looks really detailed. But before we actually look at the rest of the body, just like we do with every other figurine, we're going to have a closer look of the figurine starting from his foot area. And as we can see here, he is barefooted because he's kind of like a martial artist, so he's obviously not going to have too much clothes around him besides his shorts. And also, this is an articulated figure, so there's going to be noticeable lines around the figurine where it kind of looks a little bit weird, like the top line here where the connection of his toes and the bottom of his sole or his heel, which is not too much of a distraction. I do like how they have the additional sole where you see that little line that goes in between where his foot would be bending. It's the same detail they have on the top of the foot, where you do see this little section here where it looks like tendons are sticking out of his, or the top of his foot, which is a really detailed addition to the figurine. But like I said, it is an articulated figure, so there's going to be some noticeable lines in some areas where it does bend, but I think that gives you kind of a more of a range of how to pose the figurine in different like positions rather than just having a stiff foot. But just like I said, this is an articulated figure, so his toes do bend upwards and his foot can pivot forward, back, and in different directions from side to side. And I think you can actually move this in 360 like this. Be advised that when you are doing this, do be careful because the ball joint in the inside kind of gets stuck a little, so you don't want to have it like in an awkward position. So just make sure the line here is like you have it straight, so you're able to like move the figurine foot forward. It happened to me, so I'm just letting you guys know. But yeah, you do see here that when you do push the foot or the toes upwards, you do get this little gap in between. Not that big of a deal, like I said. I think it gives you more of a range of how to pose them in different directions, which is a plus because you especially how much you pay for the figurines, you want to have it in a way where you're able to pose them in certain directions. So you can actually do this for the both left and right foot, just like I'm showing you here. His foot also bends forward by his toes, and you can also pivot it backwards, and just like I stated earlier, you can have it in different directions. Like let's say you want to have him pose like in a little tippy toes, you can kind of push his ankle back or his heel back, and then his toes can be pressed forward, so he's like kind of like in a little stance. We can have him on like a tippy toes like this to have him postured ready to throw a fist, like we usually see him in either in the show or in the manga. So here's a closer look of Baki's leg, and then we can see here is actually really well detailed. We do see here all these individual like scratches, or you could say it's battle scars or maybe training scars throughout his fights during the series, which is really well detailed. And we do see here's a little texture work around his I guess you can say that his gastrocnemius muscle in the back, which is actually quite thick because of all the training he does have. And you can also consider him the son, or he is the son of the strongest man alive in the series. And here's the front section of his foot where we do see his knees all the way to his thigh, or his quadriceps, which are actually really muscular. And he does have a mixed media shorts, so you can actually push that upwards where we do see the rest of his muscular thigh or quadriceps, which are actually really muscular and detailed. And he is, like I stated, an articulated figure, so you could actually bend his foot back just like this, and we do notice is like kind of like a noticeable gap from that little joint area, which is not too much of an issue. I mean, like I said, you're gonna obviously see some weird looking shapes of the little bends whenever you bend one of these like figurines, which is not too bad. I think they did a pretty nice job with it. You could actually push his foot forwards as well, so you can go in for a kick. And I think you kind of shift his from his thigh area, you can kind of shift it from side to side and then make his foot in different angles. But I'm not gonna go too much into that to try to save up on time. Here's his short area where it is a mixed media, so it's like a fabric on his actual figurine sculpt. So there is a sculpt underneath, and he does have a sculpted like glute sections or his backside, which I'm not going to be showing on camera. I don't know how sensitive YouTube is. I mean, I did get in trouble for another figurine I unboxed if you've been on my channel, so his shorts are gonna stay on. So we get this really well stitched up together pants or shorts, which actually look really nice. They're actually flexible from the top portion of it, and as I stated earlier, you could actually remove this pants. I'm not gonna do that on camera, maybe later in the video, because I know he has extra clothing that you could put onto him, so maybe I will be doing that later, but not right now. But we do see here's a closer look of his little abdomen here, where it has all the six-pack, which you can kind of see. They give it a lot of detail. You can kind of see his by his waist area, he can shift side to side, and we do see this noticeable top portion of his pecs, where you do see is kind of like a soft material, just like we've seen with my Cobra unboxing. It's the same material that they used on the top section of his pecs. And we do see here from going to the side all the way to the back, which is, you do see we get all this textured muscle in the back and from the side, and this back section here where you do the infamous demon or Oni face, which looking at it from this figurine sculpt, it actually does kind of look like a face. So I can kind of see why in the series people were scared of looking at Baki from the backside, or I think it was from his dad, and then Baki was able to get that Oni or demon in his back, where we do see this little section kind of looks like eyes, but it is actually really well sculpted. I actually really like the way this looks here. It actually really represents that evil or demon look of his back, but they're actually just muscles. And we go to the side here, just like I said, you can kind of see what I was talking about earlier. You can kind of see it is a plastic material, so it's kind of like a soft, flexible material towards the top of his pecs area. So again, it's not too much of an issue, but I kind of would have liked to see it more sculpted, but it's kind of something that we see in Storm Collectibles figurines. So going from the top portion here, we do get his hand sculpt, or should I say his arm sculpt, where we do see you kind of swivel it around, up and down, side to side. And I don't think this is removable, so I think it might be, but I would not try to take it off. But from his forearm section, you do see you can kind of swivel it 360 motion, and this little bend here where you can bend the figurine forward like this. But because he has these muscles, you're kind of limited to how far you can push his arm forward. His arm does not go back, but his hand sculpt, you can kind of swivel it from 360 motion. But yeah, besides that, he does have this little wrist guard, or should I say like maybe a wrapping around his wrists, that is removable as well, just like we saw from his leg portion. And his other arm is the same thing. You kind of swivel it in 360 motion and move the little shoulder pad, or the little shoulder there as well. Same thing, you can push him forward. But again, just like his other arm, his muscles there are kind of like blocking his entire bend of the little joint there to bend like all the way forward. So you kind of limited to how far you can push the hand forward, unless you gotta position the shoulder a little bit more to push it forward. But from what I'm doing it here, you're kind of limited to how much you can actually push it forward. But he does have the same battle scars around his arm that he has on his body. Same thing with his calves, same thing with his legs, which is really detailed. Here's a better look of his closed default fists that he does have, which I think this is going to be maybe the pose that I have him in with these closed fists, because I know that he does have other swappable hand sculpts that I will be showing you guys later in the video. And yeah, but it is actually really well detailed, and his arms do bend from side to side as well. And I think that's kind of about it. So we're gonna be moving on to his face here, or should I say his head sculpt, where we do see here is the main attraction of every figurine you do get. So I think they did a pretty nice job with translating Baki into this figurine format, because I think they released their smaller scale Since this is their 1/6 scale, it's kind of a larger look of Baki, which I think they did a really nice job with it. The hair looks absolutely gorgeous. What we do see here is this individual like sculpts of each of the hair, which is really nice. His face actually looks really nice as well. We do see here his regular face. We have his slanted eyes. We have the little mole around his lip there, which is really nicely detailed. Here we have his eyebrows underneath his front bangs, which are covering it. But there's one thing I did notice with his figurine is that if we get a closer look at his hair, it actually isn't, you know, just straight plastic. It's actually a flexible material. So you could actually bend his hair around, and I don't really think there's going to be an issue with laying him flat in anywhere, or maybe him kind of toppling over a little and hitting a surface, because his hair is not going to really be, you know, chipping or breaking. So, which is actually a really nice touch. You know, figurines tend to give you like that hard sculpt when it comes to these hair, but the fact that they give you a little bit more flexibility on the hair is actually makes it a little bit more safer to place them down on a flatter surface. We do see the back of his hair looks absolutely amazing. As I stated, it looks really good. It almost like on par with like when we see Prime 1 Studios sculpts of their hair. Looks really detailed. Again, you can kind of see the flexibility with all these like tips of the hair pieces there, where you can flex them around. Again, looks really awesome. Looks really great. Now here's his other side profile here. And something I forgot to actually mention is that his head actually rotates in 360, because he is like a actual ball joint, where it's actually like a little ball joint connected into his head sculpt, so you can actually move his head around in 360. And because his hair is flexible, there's not really too much of an issue of it getting like kind of scratching on the little plastic chest or pecs area he does come with. But again, I do advise don't really be moving it around in 360 like that, because I would assume maybe the paint could rub off on his skin. So just be careful with that. But with that, that would actually be the entirety of Baki's figurine sculpt, which is absolutely amazing. And I don't really have anything else negative to say about the figurine. Maybe when it comes to his joint areas, where you're kind of limited to how far you can pose his hand. But besides that, I still think it's good. So let's just move on to the other accessories that the figurine does come with. With the addition of this hand sculpt, which is the default closed fist that he does come with, he does have an additional 5 hand sculpts. So overall he would have 6 hand sculpts. So this here will be considered the first hand sculpt, which is the closed default for both the left and right. So here we have his second hand sculpt, where we do see he kind of has like a little bit of his fingers postured in a little bit of a stance position. Where you do see here his fingers are actually bended a little, or they're straight but they're bended a little or slightly. As I stated, it could be like when he's posing. Like if you ever seen one of his manga covers, he has his fingers a little bit like in this little postured grapple, because you know he's Baki the grappler. And I guess you could say this is like his kind of his grapple stance fingers. But the fingers are actually really well sculpted, and his palm area is actually really well detailed with all these lines. And we do see his fingernails on the tips of his finger, which is really great. They're not that noticeable, but you do see the noticeable tendons in the front of his or the back of his hand. And we do get one sculpt for both the left and right. So here's the other hand sculpt, which is the third one in the set. Here we have his like an open palm, and we do see here his fingers are outstretched, like he's about to slap someone or maybe give a high five. And we do see he has his actually really well detailed as well. We do see his little tendons by his fingers. We do see the wrinkles on his fingers. We do see his nails, and we kind of see his knuckles kind of protruding out. like maybe slightly a little, but it's actually really well detailed. Just like the other hand sculpts, you do get a pair of both the left and right hand sculpt. This here I'm showing you is the right hand, and we do get is the bottom section of the hole here where you do connect it onto the arm. So like I said, this is the left and then this is the right one. So here's the fourth hand sculpt you do get, and we can see here I'm not really certain what pose this is supposed to be. It's kind of like a piece. He's doing like a piece but with two fingers attached together. It could be like he's poking someone or he's hitting someone with his fingers. Again, I'm not really certain if this is supposed to be like a battle stance finger. You do get a pair of the both left and right for this hand sculpt. It's actually really well detailed. They did add the little tendons on the top or the back of his palm, and we do see the little creases by his fingers, the little knuckles there, and his palm also is actually a little bit detailed as well. Again, I'm not really too certain what to call this hand. I'm just gonna call it the little finger poke hand, I guess. And there's two holes I noticed on this, so just make sure you connect it to the little deeper hole on the center. I'm not gonna make a joke on that, but yeah, this do have a pair for the both left and right. Here's his fourth hand sculpt, where you do see is kind of it's almost the same as the second hand sculpt I showed you, but this one's a little bit more, the fingers are a little bit more straight. It's kind of a closed grasp, but not all the way. So he's about to grapple something, but it's like not as strong as what we saw with the other one. But we do see here the tendons, the lines here, his knuckles being thick, and his little like lines around his fingers, who gives it a lot more detail than just it being like just straight flat and with fingers or fingernails, I should say. And it actually is really nicely detailed. Again, I'm not certain what this would be called. Like I said, it could be like kind of a closed grasp posture. Again, it does have a hole at the bottom. There's two holes there. Just make sure you connect it to like the center one. And you do get the pair for the both left and right. The last final fifth, or should I say the sixth hand sculpt in the pair that we get on with the accessories. And again, I'm not certain what to call this hand pose. I think it's kind of like a grasp pose. The fingers are straight and kind of slightly bended towards the top, so it's like he's grabbing onto like somebody, but it's not really on someone, if that makes sense. And here we have is the same texture work we got with all the other hand sculpts, with his thick knuckles, his little creases by his fingers, and then we have the tendons in the back of his hand, which is actually really nicely detailed. Like just like we get with his body, his hand sculpts are actually quite detailed as well. There's actually something I forgot to mention with the other hand sculpts, is that his fingers are bendable, like they are flexible, so it's kind of like a flexible plastic, not really a stiff one. So you don't really need to worry about, putting too much force on the fingers. I mean, unless you kind of worry about bending the fingers too much, but his fingers are bendable. That's something I forgot to show you guys with the other ones that I'm mentioning here and showing you guys. But yeah, but again, you do get a pair for the both left and right arms for this hand sculpt. And there is, like I said, a little indent here on the inside. Just make sure you connect it to this most center hole. extra head sculpt for Baki, and we do see here at the bottom we have is the insert where we connect the ball joint from his figurine to the actual head sculpt. And we can kind of see here the back section of his hair is flexible, so when you do connect it onto the body, there's not really too much of a worry of it, stabbing into the plastic. But here's a closer look of said head sculpt, and we do see here he has a kind of like a angry, yelling expression on his face, or maybe he's doing like the little back flex where he shows his back, his demon back, and he has like an angry expression. And you do see here they give it a little bit of a sculpt of his teeth, his little tongue. We do see all these creases on his, like, by his eye section, and his eyebrows are shaped that he's angry. But we do see that they did a pretty nice paint work here on his eyes as well. And his hair is actually flowing upwards, where, like I said, it could be maybe this is when he's flexing, or when he's like he's getting really angry and his aura is like making his hair kind of flow upwards. Here's his side profile, and then again, as I stated with his other hair sculpt, is absolutely detailed with all these little hairs like sticking up. And you do see here, you can kind of see the flexibility of the hair as well, with all these little strands sticking out, which is actually really well sculpted. I don't really think there's too much of an issue placing this head down, so you don't really need to worry about it if you accidentally flick one of these hairs, because they are bendable. Here's the other side of his head sculpt, where you do see his side profile there, and again looks really like detailed. Here's the top portion of his hair, from each and every one of these hair pieces sticking out. But besides that, there's not really too much else to add. I really do like the expression where it gives it like he's like yelling. So let's just add this to the body. Here we have is both head sculpts side by side. This is the regular head sculpt, which is the default look that Baki has, and then on the other side we have here is the yelling, more angrier expression. Obviously, besides the face, you can kind of see that the hair is a little bit more different from the original Baki's head sculpt, so you can kind of pause the video and see the little differences from side to side. So let's just move on. So here's the extra accessory that Storm Collectibles provides for anyone who buys the figurine, and we do see here is a swappable school uniform for Baki. So you know how he is a high schooler. I know he's like super muscular for a high schooler, but he is a high schooler that, I think he's a third year, I think. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, you see here's the fabric work looks actually really nice. It's actually just plain black. It is a little bit flexible, the pants, but besides that, it actually looks really nice quality. And you do get a set of pants, I think a tank top in the inside. Yeah, you do get a white tank top on the inside, and then you get his little vest on the top portion of it. If I remove this, you can kind of see the vest or the tank top I was talking about, which is a white, not a clear, but it's a white, I think it's cotton material, which is actually really nice. Here's the inside of this this jacket here from his school. Yeah, the buttons here look a little bit like fragile, or should I say, if you pull on it, you can kind of rip it off. So do be careful with the buttons there. It is a pretty nice stitch work they did on this material. It's kind of reminder of the other Storm Collectibles figurine I got, where they gave you like an extra jacket, and it's kind of the same stitch work. It looks really nice. The inside, again, I would advise be careful on the inside here of the jacket. It does look a little bit flimsy, so when you do add it on, just be careful with this jacket. So I did want to mention that when you ever add any of these clothing, just remember to always deassemble the figurine. So first you do have to remove his head sculpt, then you have to, well, to be on the safe side, remove his hand sculpts, what I normally do when I switch clothing of a character. And his foot sculpt you do have to remove, so you're able to actually add the pants on it. Again, I do advise be careful when you are disconnecting this, because when I first disconnected it, it was actually quite stuck on there. So when you do grab it, just kind of swivel his foot around to like kind of pop it off. And just like I mentioned earlier, you could actually remove this little wrist area. I don't really think you need to remove that. I'm just showing you guys that you could remove it, but just for the video I'll kind of have this off of him. And the extra cloth by his ankles you could actually remove, but I'm not going to remove it because again it was kind of stiff. So just to avoid damaging it, I'm just going to leave it on him, but you could remove that if you'd like to. And for his shorts, it does not come with assembly instructions guide, so I'm not really certain if you have to remove his pants, his shorts, but just for the video we're going to take his pants off. Pause, I don't know, but you could take his pants or his shorts off, where you will expose the rest of his like figurine sculpt there. Again, I'm not really too certain if you need to remove his pants. I'm only doing this just to be on the safe side, to be able to place his pants on. This is how he will look when you deassemble him, and he does have a sculpted glutes at the back, but again I'm not going to show too much on that because I don't know how sensitive YouTube is. But when you are adding his pants, just make sure you unclip this little section here that does, it's like a little button, you know, unbutton this little button that he does have on his pants, just so it makes it easier, because when I was placing I didn't notice that and I thought I was going to break that little section there. So just be careful when you are, you know, adding these pants together. And once you have it, you do have to connect the button again, and then there's a little hook on this pants which is a little annoying. But once you get it on there, you will actually have his pants on the figurine, which does feel a little loose, so I feel like you might have to leave his shorts on. But next we're going to be putting his tank top on him, and you do have to pose his hand upwards like this. And just make sure you're kind of careful when you are adding his fabric here. It is a little flexible, but just so you kind of avoid it like stretching it too much, just kind of take your time when you are connecting it. Obviously I'm going to cut this footage and not show you the struggle that I went through. So yeah, so it should slide on just like this, and then from there you should have him with his tank top on. Again, just make sure you clip the little pants here because it kind of comes off easily, so just be careful with that. So that would actually complete both the tank top, where you can kind of have him pose like this if you would like to, but just for the video we're going to add his vest on. So just make sure you push his hand sculpts or his arm sculpts back like this, and then you can add his vest here and just slide it on. Again, just be careful when you are connecting it here because there is a gap in between the front fabric of the vest with the main hole. So when you are sliding it in, just make sure you have it in the correct area or in the correct hole, insert hole, so it doesn't accidentally, you know, rip the fabric on the inside. But from there, it would actually have him with all his clothing on, and then you can add all his head sculpt, his arm sculpt, and complete the figurine from then. So I did want to add that there's actually an extra foot sculpt. Rather than him being barefooted, they did provide you with this extra sculpt of shoes, and this is not actually something you slide on. This is just an additional sculpt that they gave you. So it's just this little peg that you connect onto his foot. So it's a separate piece that you do see here. The paintwork looks, you know, kind of okay. There's some of the laces that are not, you know, well painted, but it's not something that's too much of an issue. The bottom section of his foot kind of looks like Converse, which is actually pretty nice. I don't know if that's what it's supposed to be, but they look like Converse at the bottom if you have those shoes. But here from the side, the toes, or should I say the toe section of his foot does bend as well, which kind of gives, it looks kind of awkward from the bottom section, that this whole shoe could bend like this. But I mean, like I said, it's going to be something that you do notice when you get articulated figures. but I don't really think that's too much of an issue. Again, I think that's a plus that you're able to pose them in different angles. But again, this is the two separate foot sculpts, and the little ball joint on the top here where you do connect to his foot. So let's just add this to complete the figurine. And with that being connected, it actually completes his look of him in his school uniform. And it actually looks really awesome looking. But besides that, I think it's still a really fantastic accessory that they gave you. It kind of gives it more to the figurine rather than him being just with his regular martial arts aesthetic that he has. So that should actually complete the entirety of the unboxing. And just like I do with other articulated figures, here I place all the accessories on a flat surface. What we do see here is all the accessories of the extra hand sculpt, the head sculpt, the clothing, the shoes, and that's about it. Again, I really do like the way they added all the clothing here and all the head sculpts and hands, which looks really awesome. But you can pause the video and look at it from then, but that should actually complete the entirety of this unboxing. Alright guys, so that's going to be the end of this one. So that was Storm Collectibles 1/6 scale articulated figure of the character Hanma Baki from the series Baki, the Son of Ogre. All in all, I gotta say, is such a fantastic figurine. I think they really captured the 1/6 scale of the figurine really great, because I know they have the smaller scale, but they made it a little bit more of a larger scale with this 1/6 scale, and I think they really captured it really awesome. I love the extra accessories with him wearing his school uniform, and I think it really adds more to the figurine because, you know, Baki's kind of like only has his shorts, so adding the additional school uniform kind of gives it more to the figurine. So there's not really too much negative I can say about the figurine. I love the texture work when it comes to his muscles around his body. I love the additional battle scars that the figurine does have, and I think they really translated his demon or ogre back really nicely on the figurine. I mean, like I said, the only negative thing I could maybe say is because since he's a larger scale, it's kind of harder to pose him in certain directions, which this is why I think smaller figurines do a lot better when it comes to posing a figurine more than a 1/6 scale. But someone like me who likes 1/6 scale figurines rather than 1/12 scales, I think the figurine looks really awesome looking. And if you are wondering, yes, I do have Yujiro Hanma 1/6 scale, which I will be making a video next week for that. I was originally going to add them together for this video, but I decided to make them their own separate unboxing. Honestly, I don't really think Storm Collectibles are planning to make any other characters, so if you wanted other characters like Dopo, they only have them in the smaller scales, which if you want to have more of the characters, I'd say go for the smaller scales, because you have Yujiro, Baki, Dopo, and I think we're also getting Jack Hanma as well, which again, I think if you want to have more of the characters, I say go for the smaller scales. So without holding you guys back, if you have not watched Baki, the series, I highly recommend it. It's such an amazing, awesome show. Yeah, I know the proportions are kind of weird in the series, but I think the series is still awesome. So that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll leave you guys off with the figurine rotating in 360 and other close-up shots and maybe different poses that I can think of from the top of my head. As I always say, always support the original creators for each series that we unbox. Thank you guys for coming to the channel and supporting the videos. I appreciate it a lot. And as always, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Go check out Baki. Great show. Awesome too.
私の道はここ、あなたの道はどこ、何年だってさ、確かめ合い突き進むだけ、追い求めるものが信じ抜ける人が最強だってさ、つながり合いバチ立つ力、月の目標はなんだ、その先の未来とはなんだ、生ぬるい夢よりも熱すぎる Storm Friday。私の中置いてゆけばいい、揺るがない想いが満たされた願いが最愛だってさ、純粋なほど大きい立ち上がれ。私の道はここ、あなたの道はどこ、何遍だってさ、確かめ合い突き進むだけ、追い求めるものが信じ抜ける人が最強だってさ、つながり合いバチ立つ力、好きな目標はなんだ、その先の未来とはなんだ、あなたが見つめてる世界に私も息づいてくんだよ、生ぬるい夢よりも熱すぎる Storm Friday。
焦がれるほど求むのはなぜだ、傷つくとしても君をこの手は記憶の中の姿をなぞる、失うよりも重ねるよりも一番怖いと思うのは愛された日々ですら全て忘れてしまうこと、君をただ追ってその目に映っていたくて、誰かじゃなくて君へ届くまで抱いてじった痛みを抱いて、今誰かじゃなくて僕がどこへ行ったんだ、 Come on let's go、 答えの出し方もわからずに目を背ければ癖になる、君への距離を手探り、近くで触れたくてその手で傷つけ合うフェイト、愛夢理想綺麗な言葉、今の僕にはまだ眩しすぎるものさ、もっと欲しくてただ愛しくて過去を見つめ途方に暮れ影を追って孤独 欲を抱いて空白をつないで逃げはしないくじけはしない消えてはいないあの日見た未来君をただ追って